Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Unfiltered Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Julie Ruby. I'm going to welcome myself back from the longest hiatus in podcast history. It's been an entire 9 months since I have uploaded a podcast episode. So I wanted to bring a really important topic for today, and this is specifically talking about burnout, pretty much the entire reason why I have been absent on here for 9 months. It usually happens around this time of year where we just come out of spring wedding season and we're going to transition into fall. We maybe get a little bit of a break here and there, and then we're right back into it. It's almost like we don't give our bodies or our minds enough time to recover from what we just went through. We kind of tend to push our feelings aside in order to just quote unquote get through it, then end up crashing. A lot of people tend to think that that is just part of the job and it's to be expected. However, by recognizing those signs and realizing those signs of burnout, we can circumvent it or figure out healthier coping mechanisms to deal with it. Before I get into this topic, I just wanted to tell you guys that you are all doing amazing. It doesn't matter if you're just starting out or you're in the middle of your career, at the height of your career, or you're just slowly transitioning out of your career too. Just know that you are out here doing the damn thing, and I am so proud of every single one of you that are listening to this podcast episode. I am here to ultimately be your support system. I want to have this be a very strong community where we can all come together and support each other. It can be a very lonesome career. When you work alone, you tend to think that things are only happening to you because you tend to compare yourselves out there on social media, see everybody else thriving. And I want to say that every single person that works for themselves that is in this industry has definitely gone through what you're going through. We just don't post about it publicly. With this being said, I do want to go into the first category or subtopic. And I want to talk about how burnout isn't just being tired. Burnout is really deep, and it's something that tends to pile up. You hit a breaking point and then you just simply cannot do anything. You can't think about anything, and nothing brings you joy in life. Nothing brings you happiness, and you can essentially sink into a little bit of a depression kind of phase if you let it go on for long enough. This is something that I've gone through for years on end now. I'm speaking from personal experience, and I also want to say that I'm speaking from my own experience. I've found certain triggers that do tend to bring on burnout a lot faster. And I kind of want to talk about those really quickly. Again, these are my own personal burnout triggers. They're not generalized to every single person. However, if you are a person that's similar to me and very like-minded, then these also might be your triggers too. I do want to address that I am an introvert. Bridal parties really take it out of me. Every single time you show up for a wedding, it's very mentally and socially and physically draining and exhausting to the point where your body might hurt, your mind's reeling and going a mile per minute trying to think about all the things while still staying on time, doing fantastic bridal work, also worrying if a person's gonna like your makeup or not. I tend to get very drained by having very surface level conversations. What do you do for work? How's the weather? What's your pets' names? Where are you from? Stuff that we could almost go on autopilot for. Like if I have to have one more conversation with somebody about how I got started as a makeup artist, I'm probably going to lose it. What I usually do to kind of avoid that interaction a little bit more is trying to get deeper into a conversation topic. If maybe somebody tells me that they're from like California, for instance, I'll ask them where, because then I can say, hey, my family actually is from California. They currently live there right now. If they have pets, I love talking about people's pets. They can be cats, dogs, hamsters, rabbits. I love all pets, especially if they're dogs though. I am a dog person. So if they have dogs, I'll, ask them all about their dogs, and then I'll kind of swap dog stories about the funny things that my dogs have done versus what their dogs have done. And then it kind of gets into like a deeper conversation. Sometimes we get into like relationships that they had. So yeah, I just like to get into the deeper conversations with people once we kind of like warm up for that first like 10 minutes of talking to each other. That way, not every single conversation that I have with people seems like the absolutely mentally most draining thing ever. And the other thing that I have avoided doing is I avoided taking super massive bridal parties. If I have more than 5 people nowadays, I will go ahead and hire out another artist. However, next year in 2026, I'm actually only going to be doing 4 solo. I do want to limit the amount of not only people that I take per bridal party, but also the amount of weddings that I take. So I am only taking 25 for next year, as opposed to the 45 to 50 weddings I take every single year. So yes, that is the main things that I feel like have really triggered my burnout. Mainly the bridal party sizes, the surface level conversations, and the volume of weddings that I take every single year. So I did kind of try to address those head on. So at least in 2026, I can hopefully prevent burnout happening for a little bit longer throughout the year. What I wanted to talk about next were the early signs of burnout, and you might not again notice that it's happening until it's happening, which is why burnout is such an issue for people, because once you're in it, it's hard to get out of it. One of the most common signs of this is you dread tasks that used to make you happy or that you used to enjoy. And that is probably the worst thing, especially in this industry, when you are in the middle of bridal season, like I am right now, and you know you have a whole 30 weddings to go, and you don't enjoy doing what you're doing. And so essentially you're just having to push yourself through just to get through it. If you are in business for yourself, you don't have anybody to fall back on. Nobody else can run that business without you. And that's very, very hard, especially when it comes to burnout, because you just want to simply not do anything. You don't have any interest in running your business. You don't want to even maintain your business or think about it, but there is nobody else except for you. So that's why this is probably one of the hardest early stages of burnout, especially as a business owner. The next thing that is a very early sign of burnout too is that you tend to feel foggy or very overwhelmed by small things. This is something that definitely hits me very, very hard whenever I'm in my early stages of burnout. I'm very task oriented. What I'll usually do is I'll wake up in the morning and write out the list of priorities and then the list of things that are kind of extras. So if I don't necessarily get to them, then that's okay. But I do want to take care of my priorities list that basically need to get done that day. Whenever I'm in my early stages of burnout, I'll look at that list and get very, very overwhelmed and not do any of it. If I'm super deep into my burnout stage, even peeling myself off the couch to go to the bathroom seems like a really big task. Even making yourself food seems overwhelming. It's just one of those things where every single task is just like climbing Mount Everest, and then you'll just push it off and push it off and push it off, and then all of a sudden you have all these tasks that just build up in your mind. And then this leads me into the next early sign of burnout, which is everything starts to feel urgent or heavy. Once everything starts building up, as I mentioned, everything just seems like it has to be taken care of right then and there. I'm just a person that always thinks okay, I have to be on my phone all the time. I have to respond to these inquiries because otherwise this person might leave or they might book somebody else, and I need to respond to them right away. You do not need to respond to these people right away, especially if it's an email. They know that you realistically will probably not be checking your email every single day. There are some people out there that definitely would get very, very irritated and a little bit impatient if a service provider doesn't respond to them the very next day. But at the same time though, you don't want the clients that are automatically not going to respect your time or your personal life, because we cannot be there on our phones or our computers 24/7 answering emails. That's not the purpose of our life. We have spouses, we have kids, we have other things and other activities that we're part of in our lives. And there's a whole other side of us besides just the makeup artistry side and besides just the business side. People that don't appreciate that and respect it and understand it, we don't want as our clients. So I've essentially given myself a 24 to 48 hour period to respond to people. I also do have that as an autoresponder set up whenever people submit a form on my website. I say that I will respond to them within a 24 to 48 hour period. The only exception to this is on weekends, which means Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, because that is typically when my quote unquote work week is. Since weddings tend to take place on those 3 days. It's really hard sometimes to navigate that and have clients especially understand that concept. It's taken me a lot of mindset shifts to be able to kind of reroute my thinking a little bit on this, but I do now give myself a little bit of a grace period in responding to people. I don't even respond to DMs right away. I'll get online sometimes, I'll get on Instagram and I'll have those notifications like sitting around all day. But I'm not going to lie to you, I sometimes just ignore those suckers for like 2 days straight sometimes, especially if it's a weekend, because I don't feel like responding. Instagram kind of lets you preview it a little bit, like when notifications come up. And if it's something that requires more of a thought process, then I will definitely let that go for a day or so. Admittedly, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who does that. Don't make me feel bad. So anyways, yeah, the urgency though is definitely a very real thing, especially during early stages of burnout though. You just feel like everything is piling up and it just needs to be taken care of right away. But I promise you, the clients that are meant to be your clients and respect your time will be around whenever you decide or feel like getting back to them. The last thing that is a very early sign of burnout is that you're more irritable and less patient in general with clients or with yourself. Whenever I'm in a huge burnout stage or like an early stages of burnout, I almost feel like I'm PMSing. Anything's triggering to me. So I'll usually get into it first with my husband, since he's unfortunately the closest in proximity to me the majority of the time. I will try to filter myself a little bit and try not to be as agitated, especially when I feel it happening. But sometimes you just can't help it. And then also I feel myself just being in a worse mood in public too. Have you ever noticed that whenever you kind of wake up on the wrong side of the bed, you just don't have as good of interactions with people? I feel like I don't handle situations correctly. I feel like I even drive worse. I feel like I have more road rage going on sometimes. I don't make the best decisions, and I also don't have really positive interactions with people. Oh, and then the other thing that I tend to do too, whenever I'm in my early stages of burnout, is I have no motivation to create content. And I don't even really love posting consistently anyways, but it's like 10 times worse when you're going through a burnout period. I usually do this thing where I consistently post for like days on end, and then I will go through a burnout period on social media and then not post for like 2 weeks straight. Now I'm going into the second segment of this episode where I'm going to talk about what helps me personally deal with burnout. So what has really helped me out is that I have been time blocking myself on my calendar for just energy. Either doing like self-care sort of things or just purely blocking out certain days of the week and not taking any appointments that day. As I mentioned, I am an esthetician, so I do facial and massage services. And while those aren't super energy draining, like interacting for an hour with a makeup client would be, because I'm not talking the entire time, they still do weigh heavily on me. So what I've done for time blocking is that I have time blocked days that I want off. So I'll do like randomly Monday and Tuesday, considering that I usually don't get that busy Monday and Tuesday. I try to make them consecutive days, so it's almost like a mini weekend for me. Then what I'll do is I'll also time block during the day. So I've recently set up a time blocking system through my alarm system on my phone. I have ADHD at the same time. It's really hard for me to stay focused on tasks. So this alarm system does also help for those individuals as well. I wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning every single day, and then every single either hour to half hour, depending on what the task is, I'll set alarms on my phone for each of the tasks. And that way throughout the day, I am able to keep on schedule, but I also do allow for 30-minute breaks, at least 2 30-minute breaks. And I allow for a lunch period that's an hour, kind of like a normal 9 to 5 job would be. And that way I allow time for myself and I'm not getting overwhelmed. I know what I need to do every single day, so I'm not having to remember. I also try not to do more than 2 big tasks every single day. So for instance, this was one of my big tasks for today. I knew that writing a script and then also filming the podcast episode would take a lot of energy out of me. And I also chose doing accounting for the month of June as my other big task. Any task that is really time consuming or consumes a lot of energy, I don't do more than 2 of those every single day, just so I can feel like I accomplished something without overwhelming myself. Because ADHD people tend to get hyper focused on things, and we need to be interrupted by things sometimes, because otherwise we're just going to keep working, and that's not good for us. So that's why this time blocking method on my alarms really help. I do make sure that every single morning I am participating in some sort of grounding ritual. I'll go outside usually if the weather's really nice, and then I'll do a morning meditation session. This just gets my head in the right space. Then the other thing that I usually do in the mornings is I will go inside and have a good yoga session or some sort of stretch session. This just gets my body aligned and ready for the day. People always benefit from stretching. I think it's very underrated. Even if I have a really early appointment at 9, I will still go ahead and try to do this. The other thing that I've also tried to do too, sometime throughout the day, is I've tried to take my dogs on a walk. I just really like to be able to get outside and truly feel the sun on my skin and the wind and everything. And then also in turn, my dogs get some exercise for the day too. Simply walking around can really improve your overall health over time too. And it just makes you feel overall better. People were not meant to be stuck inside their whole entire lives. And so whenever you take the time to be able to get outside and go walking, especially if you are somebody who does have a very flexible schedule and has the luxury of making your own schedule, it's really essential to do these things and kind of create more of a habit. The other thing I do that is definitely more of a luxury than anything, and not everybody sees this as an essential practice, but every single month I always get a deep tissue massage for myself. As makeup artists, especially if you've been working in this field for a really long time, you would know that we hold a lot of tension in our back and shoulders and neck area. Our upper body goes through it, and every single month I do have the luxury of going to a masseuse. I do 2 60-minute ones, and then every third one I'll do a 90-minute. It's the only time besides meditation that I feel like I can really have mental clarity and really fully relax and get my mind to not think about anything for the time being. So that's why I do utilize massage for this. Every month or so, I've also been getting facials from other estheticians. I like to experience facials with different estheticians every single time to purely kind of dive into their minds a little bit more, see what brands they carry, see what techniques they utilize, see what tools they have, see how their rooms are set up. And it really does overall help me as a service provider. I get little tips and tricks along the way from different people, especially if they've been doing this for a lot longer than I have. I just really like to learn anything I can about the field. So I do like to partake in getting facials for myself. If you want to see it this way, if you feel like this is a little extra, I've never been super into nails. So this is kind of like my own version of getting a manicure and pedicure. It's probably about the same price too. Then the last one is something that I think we all can utilize, is letting go of guilt when you say no or go to set boundaries. Now, this is one of the things that I've heavily worked on, is setting boundaries. Hence the reason why I'm limiting my wedding volume to 25 weddings for next year, and then also not taking more than 4 people, only because of the fact that I have found myself getting very, very overwhelmed, but I could not for the life of me figure out what the cause of it was. And one day I was listening to the By Kaylee podcast, which, self-plug here, I was actually a guest on that podcast recently. It got released in June. Guys, I was fangirling. I cannot believe Kaylee asked me to be on her podcast. If you guys have not checked out the By Kaylee podcast, I'll link it somewhere in the show notes or in the description bar on YouTube. But she is really amazing. She produces really inspirational makeup artist content because she was a makeup artist herself, but she mainly focuses on business coaching now, and then her podcast, of course. She had an episode about boundary setting. She was talking about her personal boundaries that she set for herself. She was talking about how traveling super far distances outside of her area stressed her out. And I go, maybe that's the reason I don't really like doing weddings like that either, is because I just don't like traveling that far out of town. I do find myself to be like a fairly adventurous person. I always love to travel to new places, but when it comes to jobs and when it comes to weddings, I'm very much a routine-based person. I like going to venues that I know how the setup is and what equipment I have to bring, because if I don't know, that means I have to bring everything underneath the sun. And I like to know what I'm walking into, because as makeup artists, setup and lighting is very important. And sometimes I show up and there's not even tables. Then also the recent thing that's happened to me is that brides have had either a very early start time or a very short time span to get ready, where I've now been involving another assistant with me, but sometimes it's only a total of like 5 or 6 people. And it's so early in the morning that I would have to require a hotel stay, which they don't want to pay for because it's not in the budget, and I've had to eat the cost myself. Or B, the other assistant is only getting paid for 2 or 3 people, and it doesn't make the 3 hours round trip drive worth it for them. Then I'm essentially losing money trying to pay them their fee for that too. And it's just becoming more of a headache the farther distance that I travel for weddings. Don't get me wrong, I've loved every single out-of-town wedding that I've done. I always love seeing new places and traveling to new venues. I think that venues in Indianapolis are super cool. I think venues in Chicago are really cool. But I truly think that it has now gotten to a point where I just am not cut out to do that anymore, and nor do I want to do that anymore. I have limited my scope to 2 hours round trip. So I'm only going to travel a maximum of 1 hour one way, and I'm not going to travel any farther than that. If they want me to, I'm going to say no and refer another artist. It's really hard because I've always been a really huge people pleaser. I've worked in customer service for 8 years, and I am a huge helper. I want to be able to help people, and it makes me feel terrible when I can't accommodate those people, or if I am available, it's hard to say no. And I'm sure a bunch of makeup artists can relate, because that's ultimately why we got in this field, is to help other people and to be there for other people. And so saying no is not really part of our vocabulary a lot of times. This boundary of mine has been really, really hard to set with people, but I've now said no to 2 people for next year. It took a lot of willpower and a lot of strength on my end to say no to those people. I also am thinking in the back of my head, I don't know this person. They don't know me, and I will never have an interaction with them probably ever again. So why do I care? But I overall am a very empathetic person, and so I do care about what people think of me and how I'm perceived. So I just really hope they don't think that I'm unprofessional in any way. I hope that they did respect my answer, but it was a very, very hard boundary to set, and saying no is hard. I have also set a boundary with not taking any jobs after I finish weddings. I've had a couple of weddings this year that have been back-to-back days, so Saturday and Sunday or Friday and Saturday. The next day after those weddings, or even if it's just one wedding on a Saturday, I will block out the next day that I have free. That's way I can have that day to fully decompress and not have to think about anything. I don't have to work. I don't have to interact with people. I can just be by myself and purely couch rot if I want to. So that is another boundary that I've set for myself. The whole entire point of this is that I want you guys to realize that it is okay, 100%, to feel like this. And boundary setting is an essential part of growing your business and overall maintaining your mental health. So I think a lot of people, whenever they have issues with setting boundaries or they have issues with dealing with burnout, a lot of the time it's lack of self-awareness. So that's why my biggest suggestion is to really, really hone in and deep dive into every single interaction, every single situation that has triggered you or caused a burnout, and find the common denominators. To end this episode, I do want to give you guys a couple of different things to think about in case you are kind of struggling. I want you guys to note all of these questions, and this will help you figure out what your triggers of burnout are, and also kind of like what is going to help you reframe your business too. What tasks used to give you energy that now feel draining? This can kind of help you pinpoint where you used to have a lot of joy and a lot of happiness that now almost like an obligation started to take over, and you no longer feel happiness from it. Then next question is, are there certain types of clients, services, or content that instantly spike up your stress? This is a huge one, because this is what question I asked myself initially, and that's kind of how I figured out that I don't like taking larger bridal parties. And then also, as I said, the pressure to post content, that also gets me too. So this can definitely tell you where you're really struggling. The third question is, when do you notice yourself feeling resentment in your business? This one is where you really, really need to go deep. Resentment, I want to say, is often the first red flag of when you overexert yourself, or where you're doing things that are not necessarily helping you, and you're kind of just putting on this facade almost in order to attract a certain clientele that you're not necessarily aligned with. Or you're just doing it for like the social media content, because that's something that I was doing for a while too. Number 4 is, do you feel like you can never fully quote unquote clock out? So burnout often stems from never having a true off switch. And that's what I think every single time when burning out happens, is that I just want it to stop. There's no end to it. I can't see the end. Number 5, are you constantly saying yes even when your body or gut says no? And this is coming back to my quote unquote can't say no situation, people please yourself, that I've worked really hard to get over. It's still a struggle for me. I'm still dealing with it. There's still times where I do every once in a while just say yes to things that I know are not aligned with what I want to do in my life. But because of the fact that maybe it's like a person that I've been seeing for services for a while that maybe want a certain date that I blocked out for, I'll say yes because that's the only date that works for them. But I really need to set my boundaries and put my foot down and say no. But It's hard, guys. It's hard. Number 6 is, do you find yourself fantasizing about quitting everything? Not because you don't love it, but because you're exhausted. This is such a hard-hitting question. There are times where I just want to quit everything, delete my social media, quit my business, and never touch it again. But then again, though, it's not because I don't love it and have a passion for it. It's because I just am tired of doing it. And then the last question to ask yourself is, what's one habit or boundary that you've let slide that used to help you feel grounded? And this is something that is going to totally change your mindset on how you deal with boundaries, and also what boundaries that would be important to have in place that you've kind of just let go. Now, there's another question that I do want to leave you with, whether it's in your mind, or on a piece of paper, on your phone, etc., just something to think about, is what's something you're doing to protect your energy this week? I want you guys to clarify this in words and then execute it as much as you possibly can. And again, that can be something along the lines of time blocking yourself, going on a walk, doing yoga, doing meditation, whatever your thing is that helps you decompress and really get more in tune with yourself and makes you calm and relaxed. Find that thing and do more of it this week. So hopefully you guys really enjoyed this. If it did help you in any way, shape, or form, or it resonated with you, go ahead and just leave me a comment either on Spotify, or if you guys are watching this in video form on YouTube, let me know what topics that you want me to talk about. I feel like I might start doing more mental health sort of things on this podcast nowadays. And hopefully it will not take me another 9 months to upload another podcast episode, but there's also no promises. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. And again, take more time for yourself, do more of what you love. Just know that you guys are not alone. You are doing the best that you absolutely can, and that is enough.